So, why I am an atheist, or rather, why I'm an outspoken atheist. Why I would be an atheist should be obvious for anybody who buys into the notions of scientific study and empirical evidence. Why I would be an outspoken atheist, pardon me, is a short little story. Back in the day, when I was, what was that? I guess that was, let's see, 23. So, I'm so excellent at math. Well, I was 16. 23 minus 16. Anybody? Haven't a clue. But anyway, I'll let you figure out the math there. When I was about 16, I got into role-playing outside of high school. So, Traveler was what was big for me back then. It's the first RPG I got into. Traveler, for those that are uninitiated, is a 1980s style role-playing game. That is to say, it was very hack and slashes. You created a character, rolled up your equipment and stats, went on, busted out your laser guns, and went to go shoot some aliens. It was really, simulationist in manner, for those of us that buy into the GNS theory, or know about Ron Edwards' big model, and buy into that theory. Anyway, it was extremely sci-fi in nature, so there wasn't any trappings of fantasy and or quote religion unquote involved in it. You went around, you flew in a spaceship. There were actually really awesome mechanics for generating your spaceship, and then really grotesquely complex but nevertheless engaging mechanics for using your starship to fight off other starships, and it was really cool in that respect. Anyway, about a year after I'd finished dabbling in Traveler, I was introduced to Dungeons & Dragons. I had kind of meandered into role-playing, not really realizing it was an extremely large, well, not extremely large industry, but the much larger entity that it was at the time. So I was introduced to Advanced Dungeons & Dragons first, even though Advanced Dungeons & Dragons was a few editions behind the latest editions, the later edition of Dungeons & Dragons out at the time. But my friends were just into AD&D, they loved AD&D. So, I was like, oh, okay, this is cool. It's kind of like Traveler, but you're fighting dragons and goblins instead of aliens and other humans in space. And we sat down with the regular group and we were playing, and I remember the one occasion where these people had come into our gaming club, and apparently they were regulars there, but I didn't recognize them. And they wandered around, just kind of would appear to be bothering people, just bothering them at their tables and whatever. I assumed that they were people who were like anti-geek or anti-nerd, just coming to give us a hard time. But actually, when they came over to our table, I realized they were handing out religious pamphlets and condemning our practice. And I was extremely confused by this. And the other people at the venue didn't seem to care. They put aside the little brochures and pamphlets they gave out and seemed to ignore the comments. But I was confused because I was very new to this. I didn't realize that the negative stigma was there for the industry, and so I just confronted them at the time, not aggressively, because I'm not an aggressive kind of person. Go figure. Just said, well, what's the problem? I don't understand what the issue is here. We're just a bunch of role-playing guys. We're not trying to impose upon your religion. I don't believe there's any religious pretext here. And they started harping about how it was what our practice was demonic. What we were doing was, we were dabbling in magics and curses, and that we were sinful because of that. And I was confused. I just looked and turned to the one guy and said to him, I didn't realize that in the Bible, God had declared it a sin to roll polyhedral dice and consult a Thaco chart, which is what I was doing at the time. We were raiding a bunch of goblins who had attacked the village, and we were trying to get back everybody's loot. It was cool. Anyway, the guy just looks at me and goes, "What are you even what are you talking about? What's a Thaco chart and polyhedral dice? I don't understand. And so I showed him what we were doing. I brought out the role-playing book, and they kind of winced and shied away from it at first, but I was like, give me a break, guys. You can clearly see what this is. It's a hardcover, glossy papered book, the quality of which, I mean, is equal to any hardcover book that you'd find in a bookstore, any kind of fictional work. Take a look. I just flip through the pages like there's nothing in here that's going to hurt you. It's dice charts and numbers. What you're asserting is stupid. And they just kind of sat down after a bit of convincing and watched us play the game. And slowly it began to dawn on them what was actually happening. And like I said, I was like, okay, well, whatever. This is odd that you guys came in here and did this. But then after I had finished explaining to them and they had left the venue, my friends just turned to me and said, wow, I mean, we hadn't realized that you could do that with those kind of people. And I was like, well, what do you mean those kind of people? I'm a bit confused here. I don't understand what happened. And they started explaining to me this story of how role-playing games attain this stigma against religion, because way back when, there's the original story is that a lady named Patricia Pulling, her son named Bink Pulling. This was back when D&D was an extremely brand new thing. We're talking like first edition. Her son had committed suicide, shot himself in the chest, and she alleged at the time, because she couldn't accept that this is what her son had done because his life had become so terrible, that he'd done this because a D&D curse had been placed upon him while they were doing a role-playing game at school. Now, anybody who had actually played D&D would know that the accusation was bogus. A curse in D&D is a matter of saying, I choose to cast this curse at your character, and then I roll some dice to determine how well the curse was cast. And I have a feeling that if I approached you and suggested that I was going to cast a curse at you and rolled some dice on the ground, you'd be no worse for wear. Anyway, this bogus argument wound up carrying with it some weight, because nobody at the time realized what Dungeons and Dragons was. It was this brand new thing, and there was this mysterious aura surrounding it. So she was able to successfully attack it that way, and this actually snowballed into a tremendous and dramatic series of events, where she allied herself with a bunch of people who were against violence and entertainment and fundamentalist religious groups, effectively, who were opposed to anything from heavy metal music to role-playing games, certainly, New Age beliefs, channeling, and Wicca, dabbling, that kind of stuff. So, having allied herself with all of these people, she proceeded to make publications and inform, quote-unquote, the public about the dangers of Dungeons and Dragons.